Okay, Tom John, I've put some of my thoughts into a PowerPoint presentation to help me stay focused on topic and not get sidetracked here. And so I want to use this as like a discussion to discover what it is, all the issues are in this sushi shop buyout project.
Got it. Perfect.
So the offer that came in from Ashiba was they wanted to do a 5-year lease plus 2 5-year options. They want to start in June. This is their base rate. Approximately that for the triple net. This is the CAM essentially. All the CAM is rolled into triple net. Okay, and security deposit, 1 month's rent, that's standard, and then a 3% annual increase for after the first year, which is normal. And then they want 2 months free rent here, one in February and one in June. It sounds like they want to do some light tenant improvements in that restaurant. Okay, and then the real estate agent, Ken, who's representing this tenant, is asking for a commission on the lease, which of course he would get. That's pretty standard for, because he says, okay, what does this mean for us in actual real losses? Because the situation is that the sushi shop lease is not up for another year. So this is a lease buyout. Basically, this we would forgive the current sushi shop their lease terms and replace them with this new tenant's lease terms. So we would be taking a hit, an actual real loss in this situation. The 2 months rent that we would be losing are this, and then they want to reduce the current rent by
Sherry,
about,
can you repeat that because you cut out for a little bit?
okay, our actual real losses would be the 2 months rent. So that's 9,500 plus the $270 reduction because they're offering about $270 less than what we're getting now from the sushi shop. So
Okay.
for 10 months, that adds up to 2,700. So you add these two figures together, and this is what our actual real loss would be in the next year if we took their offer. Do you understand?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. It's it's the 2 months off plus the $270 reduction over a 12-month period of time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it's 10 months because they wouldn't start till
10 months. Yeah,
June. And
got it.
the lease of the current sushi ends in March of
Mhm.
next year. So April, May, actually it would be probably it should be actually 9 months if we want to get technical, depending on the move-in date. So this could be a little less here.
Right.
But let's just say it's $12,000 hit, a $12,000 hit
Mhm.
to our bottom
Yep.
line if we took their deal. So why would we want to take this deal? Quiz question for you. Okay, no, I won't make you answer it. But here's the given that you don't have like you're not a real estate developer, you're in the education
Right.
fields. So let me answer the question for you. The reason is most landlords want long-term tenants, 5 years is pretty normal. Because that means they think they have security when it comes to the rental income, and that's what they want. They want steady rent coming in, low amount of effort. And so most landlords would say, okay, I'll take a 12,000 hit this year if it means I can have some security for rent coming in for the next 5 years, because I know that this lease is going to be up for the current tenant in 1 year. So I'll give up this 1 year's $12,000 in exchange for security longer term going forward, for steady rent coming in. Plus, I don't have to worry about having a vacancy. This is a clean handoff between tenants, and I have my full 100% occupancy rate, which is really important for hitting your target goals financially. So that's why we should consider it, because yeah, we're taking a loss here, but over a long time, we get that security and we get that, 100% vacancy target met. Got any questions?
No, no, that makes sense in that there's an exchange of we take a $12,000 hit now in exchange for secure income going forward.
Right, exactly. Okay,
So-
so in this type of situation, this is brainstorming. This is not all of the roles and responsibilities. It's just the ones that popped up to the top of my head, right at the top. I just wanted to put these out there, given, that our group of owners has limited experience with real estate professional type activities. So
Yeah.
I want to try to bring everybody up to understand what the roles and responsibilities are, but this is just some of them, not all of them. So in these types of situations, Deanne's roles would be to screen and qualify tenants. That's one of her core competencies. Whereas our role is just to approve the new tenant, but make sure it's within line with our goals and vision.
Mhm.
And also in line with this process of negotiation. And so she's the pivotal communicator between the buyer and the seller. Well, we are actually dictating the terms and actually conducting the negotiation. So we really need to be able to ask questions and guide the negotiation, again, in line with our goals and vision. So what am I talking about there? I'm going to come back to that slide to hit other points, but I'm just going to hit what do I mean by goals? I'm talking specifically financial goals, money to our bottom line. So these are the things that we would have as goals: achieve 100% occupancy, reduce our operational costs, and achieve market rate rents. And all of these together, we would want to, use to hit the main goal of every real estate investor, which is to have our cap rates be high and, profitable. Right now, our cap rate is below 2%. It's like 1.6 or something. And so what is cap rate? Cap rate, okay, if you sold the property and you put that money into a bank account, what interest would it be making that would be equivalent to what we're making now? That's what we're making. So basically, if we sold our property for $18 million and put that $18 million in the bank and compared it to what we're making now on that $18 million, we would be making a 1.6% interest on our property. So this is extremely low for real estate investing.
Right.
If you're buying a new property, say you're a real estate investor and you want to buy a new property, you're looking for cap rates that are, certainly above 5%. Many real estate investors are targeting over 10% cap rates. And if you're a developer, you're looking to develop a property and get cap rates on the order of 8% to 15%. So that kind of gives you an idea of what we are performing very low when it comes to cap rate calculations.
I
So
think it might be helpful to draw that comparison out, unless you've done it on another slide, like here's our cap rate, but here are some
industry
target cap
standard.
rates for, industry standard cap rates.
Okay, yeah, I will. I think that actually that discussion, it could be an entirely different hour-long,
I'm
meeting.
sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this is just what I'm talking about to identify our goals. And then, of course, you can put your goals in terms of timing. And you're always asking, are you going to hold, sell, or develop? These are the questions you want to ask. And you want to look out every, 5 years. So this is what I mean by goals. All right, so in our vision, what do I mean by vision? So if you're talking about vision, you want to have a picture in your head of what this property will look like in, say, 5 years, say 10 years, say, 20 years, whatever. So, if so we know that if we put this property on the market for $18 million, no one will buy it to keep what's there and just continue operation as usual. They would be getting negative cap rates with the property tax increase. It would be ridiculous. Like they would be losing money. Nobody would keep what's there if they buy this property for $18 million. So this property, if it were ever to be sold, would be sold to a developer, and they would want to put in a project that would cost between 40 and $80 million. And per the code, the zoning for this property, the properties, they would have underground parking, they would have street level retail, and then they would have 3 to 5 levels of condos above that. Okay, so that's who would be buying. It would be a developer who's got this vision in mind. Okay, so how can we align our vision with their vision? If I'm thinking like a developer, what buildings get knocked down and which ones potentially stay? And the only one that I can see, the structure that I can see is the only potential one to be saved is this front 4-unit 2-story buildings.
Mhm.
Here, this portion
The
right here.
Colorado buildings.
Yes, the Colorado building, it's one building right here, this one. So if you look at it from the aerial picture, it's this front unit. It's got the historic clock tower, and it's got, there is some historic value to it. In fact, you might have pushback from any kind of historical, whatever associations down there that might even prevent or forbid a developer from knocking down this front portion of the arcade.
Right.
So this, and if a developer came in there and saved this front building as part of their plan, and this developed everything behind it, they would probably get a lot better reception from the community, from the city of Pasadena and everything. So there is value, I think, from a development standpoint of saving this front building.
Mhm.
Okay, but everything behind it would be, leveled down to the ground. So that means when
Okay.
we're thinking about putting in improvements and investing in like things that we think will make the property more beautiful, things that will make it more, functional and appealing. Really, this area I would consider potential where we would want to put that kind of investment in because of the potential for it, the likelihood of it being saved in the future. But back here, I would say, no, we want to probably put as little sink as little money as possible into it to just keep it functional and rent it out, 100% occupancy and nothing more. And so that's what I'm thinking right now, is to think like a developer and kind of take that approach when we're talking about investments for this property. Do you have any questions?
No, I think I think that makes sense too, that the Colorado facing stores, if you will, are are the highlighted pieces. It's nice to be able to walk through the arcade and El Portal and the spot off Green Street, but I think the Colorado facing properties are the key. I agree with that too.
Okay. So the other part of our vision is aligning our owners. We got nearly almost 30 owners now. And and I'm sure they all have different ideas for their vision. Maybe some are like, I want to sell this thing. Others are like, there's no way I'm selling. This thing is like, I'm personally attached to it. I've, owned it all my life. No way am I want to sell this. And somebody else, I want to pass this down to my kids, or I want to preserve this thing for the community. I don't know what everybody's vision is for this. And how do we handle all of the challenges that are coming toward us? How do we justify this low cap rate? You know, how do we, in light of everybody's vision for the property? And how do we pay our LLC managers? As what I mean is as these percentage interests get divided more and more and more, it, you know, if you got somebody making $500 a month on this, that $500 alone doesn't justify the work it takes to be an LLC manager. You know what I mean? So as this
Right.
thing gets divided down smaller and smaller, how do these owners plan to compensate their managers? And then um, you've got, you know, really staying in tune with, as this thing gets split down more and more and more as it passes to further generations, um, you know, does that change the formula for people? Do they want to sell? There may become a tipping point at some point where you have a wave of owners that are like, no, we just need to sell. This has been divided too far. It's too hard to manage. It's just time to sell. And so I think the only way that we can do that is to do some type of periodic owner
Mhm.
survey to get everybody on the same page and understand what all the other owners are thinking, you know, like I have no idea what the MCD's owners are
Right.
thinking about this, and no clue. And that's a huge factor, you know, that's 70% of the property. So without knowing that information, it's really hard to formulate a solid vision and goal. And I'm going the wrong way. Here we go. Okay, so conclusion, we have no vision. Okay, so, and
Mhm.
it might take between us and MCD a year to work on this, kind of like our goals and vision, and maybe 2 years to
Mhm.
work on it. This is not something we're going to solve this week. Okay, so in light of the fact that we don't have a strong vision, we don't know what all the owners are thinking, my proposal here, my suggestion is that we just, let's keep all options open. What do I mean by that?
Agree.
Specifically, when we're talking about this one option that it's not my original idea. I think Dawn and Tom have been talking about replacing these front windows for many years now. And I think were saving up money in the reserve account for this project, but then they got hit by COVID, and then Green Street was way over budget, and took, 5 years to complete and the money was basically gone. And so this project for the front windows kind of didn't happen when they thought it was. But I know
Mm.
so that's been kind of one of the thing that they're talking. What am I talking about for front windows? I'm
Yeah, I
talking,
was just gonna say it's arches, right? The awnings.
so the awnings, I think,
Oh,
the awnings are gone now. Um,
got
but
it. It's
but
these arches.
it's these arch, and what we mean by this, so all of these 1950s windows and all of this fill in up top
Mhm.
would be replaced with all glass inside this arch,
Mm.
the original
Okay.
arch. Okay, so be all just like tall, high glass going all the way up. Um, and and so that's what we're talking about when we're talking about these front windows. But so we got these four, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the four. I'm
Mhm.
thinking the ones in the arcade itself are probably just cost prohibitive to do all of those. But definitely the front four we could probably justify a return on investment there, and it could be worth our time. Are you still hearing me? Zoom. Okay, so these are some pictures inside
Mhm.
the sushi shop. And you can see here how that you can tell by this jog in the plaster that it most likely these arches were filled in, and so they weren't original. So this is one of the arcade windows here, which would not be a
Mhm.
target of our thing. But I would say that my whole point is that um, this fill in right here, based on that picture from the inside, that clue from the inside, is
Mhm.
that this has been filled in from its original configuration. Okay, so that was my point there. The other point is you can see that the ceiling in this unit, the sushi shop, goes all the way up above the arches. All right, but that's not the case when you come over here to the jeweler. You can see here that they have really filled. I mean, this is barely 8 feet. The ceiling right here is barely 8 feet tall. And I believe that there's a drop ceiling in there, or actually an actual ceiling, because again, these are just clues, like I haven't been, in there. So and what's going on here? Gotta get here, there's stairs that go up. So the arrows for steps. Oh, it actually goes up. It says up there. So that means that they might have split this, put a second floor in essentially in the jeweler because of the height situation that you can see from the front. I think also in the pharmacy here, they've dropped the ceiling down low. So my point is that it might be easy in the sushi shop to put an arch in there, but it is not so easy in the compounding pharmacy and the jewelry. I'm guessing that that will cause a chain reaction of construction
Mhm.
requirements. That it won't be a simple, oh, come in here and replace the window. No, this is a project. So the 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 things that need to be considered for such a project is that the 2 units on the right, so the
Mhm.
jeweler and the sushi shop, and the 2 units on the left, the pharmacy and Yaharas, would should be kind of thought of as two separate projects. You got the right-hand side project and you got the
Mhm.
left-hand side project. And ideally, what you would want to do when you were doing these arches is you would want to do both of those units. When I say units, I mean both of the ones on the right and both of the ones on the left. You'd want to do those at the same time. And you would want to time it with a restoration that's happening on the inside, because you're going to keep your costs way down. You're going to reduce your liability. So you don't want to have people walking through your construction site when you are, trying to keep the business open while you're doing this significant construction. And you want to also allow yourself enough flexibility to handle all of these unforeseen chain reaction consequences that once you open those walls, you'll suddenly be faced with a bunch of challenge. You'll be faced with plumbing challenges, HVAC challenge, everything that just could cut,
Right.
just could have a chain reaction through this whole process. So you really, the best case scenario is to do this while the 2 units are vacant, and you've timed it, you've planned it ahead of time. So okay, these 2 units are coming vacant in 1 year from now. Let's start planning now. You really literally need a year of planning this project and then do it all together at once, and then have new tenants lined up or the same tenants lined up to come back into those spaces after the renovation is done. That would be ideal. Now, does this meet our financial goals? Uh, well, I can tell you probably not right now if we're looking at this existing tenants. So what you would want to also consider is you would probably want to time it with the arrival of a new, what they call anchor tenant. So that's paying top dollar to be in there and has their own renovation budget to get. So maybe even combining the 2 units on the right into be one, like a Panera, you know, uh, uh, sandwich shop or something like that, like
Right.
truly an anchor tenant that's going to take over that space, that both units on the right or both units on the left. That's what I'm talking about, where their budget, their renovation budget, and their ability to pay market rate would basically justify the cost of such a renovation. Okay, so these are things that you'd want to consider. All of this takes a lot of planning ahead of time, a lot of tracking down such an anchor tenant and signing them up years in advance before they would actually move in. I mean, this is what I'm saying, and this is you really need to have a strong vision, and you really need to be taking active steps toward achieving that vision. To get where you want to go. Otherwise, you're just dumping money down the toilet, I mean, and
Right.
we want to stop that kind of bleeding of just dumping money down the toilet. We really want to have solid financial goals established, and then step one, step two, step three in order to hit those goals, in order to make this worth our time and money. Okay, so again, should we do it? I don't know. I mean, there's just absolutely too many unknown questions at this point to even answer that. I can't tell you one way or another if we should do this arch window project or not do it. I really don't know. But I do know one thing, that we would be neglectful in our duties if we didn't keep our options open when it comes to this. All right, so let's talk what am I talking about for options? What am I talking about for what do I mean? I don't know what this is up here. I must have ignore that. I think I copied something in there, and I don't know what it is, some little garbage or something. Okay, so this is what we're dealing with right now. Okay, without this lease buyout, if we just said, oh no, we're good. We don't need you to buy out the lease. The current sushi shop would be coming to the end February 2025. So that's a year from now. What they're
Okay.
currently paying is $447 per square foot. And the reason why I have this to here, I'm a little confused on how the numbers that that Deanne gave me. I'm not sure if I should be carrying. This is minus the triple net, so minus the cam. So they're paying 447, but that includes all the cam triple net. Okay, but if you take out the cam, what they're paying is 335. I'm not sure if we should be comparing 335 with 339, because she only gave me one number for
Mm,
the jeweler, or if we should be comparing 447 with 339. I'm not sure. I have an open question with Deanne to understand what number should I be comparing what number to. But so I'm sorry, this is not,
no worries. Yeah, I
clean
get
that
it.
way, but we will get this cleaned up and really understand, what the market is handling. These people have been here so long that the jewelry store and the pharmacy, I would not be surprised at all if this includes their cam, just because they've just been there
Oh, got it.
20, 30 years. And so really this is a comparison between 447 and $4. I would not be surprised if that were the case, that they were paying that much below the market rate, because this is about market rate right here when you include the cam. And so I would not be surprised at all if that included the cam and in this one too, because they've just been there for so long that would lead to these lower rate.
Right.
Then Yahara's, they're on a month to month. So this one also could be, maybe they're just getting a steal of a deal because they did it during COVID, right? And they weren't sure, are they going to stay in business or not, month to month. So we don't know. They could leave anytime, they're not committed to or bound by a lease. So if we're keeping our options open, we would want actually not to have this guy end here in February and this guy end more than a year later in May of 2026. What we would want to do is actually have a sushi lease that ended right around this guy's lease, the jeweler store's lease, right? Because then when they're both ending around the same time, then it keeps our options open.
Uh,
Maybe,
right.
maybe we have by then 2026 have lined up an anchor tenant, have organized the construction project for the window replacement. And it just everything is lined up great. Maybe that is the move. Maybe that's what we want to do. Or maybe not. Maybe we are not interested in going that route, and we just want these tenants to continue on existing there and just getting the bare minimum rents and happy with full occupancy, and maybe we don't care. But at least we have the option. If we get this lease to end, even if we don't take the option of replacing the windows, it doesn't hurt us. What are they gonna do? Then they'll be on the same cycle going forward. Maybe they both sign a 5-year lease from, maybe the jewelry store and the new tempura shop, they both sign a 5-year lease together at around the same time, and that pushes this whole timeline of the project out another 5 years. Maybe but then we've pushed the option for that project. We've pushed it, where it's feasible. We've lined up these leases so that they're expiring at the same time. And then we maybe don't do it this time in 2026. Maybe we do it in 5 years from now when both the leases expire then. So I think there's a lot of value, whether we do the project or not in 2026. I think there's a lot of value in taking this opportunity with this new tenant to line these leases up so that their first lease expires here right around the same time as 2020, May of 2026, maybe a month on either side. They want to go June to June, fine, June of 2026, but pretty close to this. Having them lined up there, I think there's great value in that, just in terms of keeping
Right.
options open. Did I explain that?
Yeah, well, and it's the timing of it, obviously, with those contracts. So yeah, that makes sense for sure.
Okay. And then you'd want to also in the future, when it came time to review Yaharas and the pharmacies, I think that the pharmacy might have one more option on their so that means an option means that you can't evict them. They have the option. We've already given them the option that they can sign another 5-year lease at the time that this lease expires in 2027. So Deanne was going to look to see if they have one more option on their lease or if they're done with their options here at this point. But nonetheless, we would want to try and align these two tenants also to be ending right around the same time, and then get on the same cycle, whether we did the window project here or if we pushed it out another 5 years from now. There's a lot of benefit in lining up these leases to end at the same time. These two at the same time, these two at the same time. Okay, so
Yep.
back to our roles.
Rainstorming.
Yeah, so roles, because this is not all our roles and responsibilities, it's just the ones that I want to highlight for this situation. So Deanne's like the reason we hire Deanne, the reason like she gets paid, top dollar to manage our property is because she has a core competency in this screening, qualifying new tenants. This is her job. So I'm not going to sit here and debate to you if this is a good tenant or not a good tenant, right? Because her ability to screen clients is way above my expertise level, right? So I have really very little to say about the quality of this tenant. First of all, because the information that they provided us so far is confusing because the guy owns so many restaurants, so it's hard to figure out what's what. Second of all, it looks like he's just barely breaking even on his USA shops. He's got shops in Tokyo. He's spread thin between the 10 shops in Tokyo and the 3 shops here, going on 4 shops when he adds this one. So this is I just don't know. Really, what needs to happen, what Deanne needs to do, she needs to complete her due diligence on this applicant, and she needs to do all of her credit screening. And the credit scores are the number one thing in determining if a tenant is going to be a good tenant or a bad tenant. And so she hasn't run the credit or done any of her due diligence yet. And so just jumping to a conclusion like, oh yes, let's sign tomorrow, first of all,
Right.
we're not in a rush because we don't have a vacancy. Number two is that we need to give her time to do the due diligence. I see no reason why we should say no, this is a terrible tenant. I see no red flags like that. But I also am not seeing a bunch of green flags that say, sign this person up tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
We in a neutral position regarding this tenant. I have nothing, good to say about them, nothing bad to say about them. I just don't know. The only way we can find out if this is truly a good tenant or not is to give Deanne the go ahead to do her due diligence. This doesn't mean that we're committing to anything. This just means that she's going to spend hours and hours and hours researching this tenant, running credit checks, doing all reference checks, all of her work that she gets paid to do. We just have to, we don't want to send her down that path of doing her due diligence if we know upfront that this is a terrible tenant or one that we don't like or one that's not a fit for the property or whatever. We want to like, if it's a definite no, we need to tell her now so she doesn't waste her time. But I see no reason to tell her no.
Right. Yeah, and I don't think, see, just like you said, I don't think it's a definite no. We just need more information.
We need more information, right? Okay. The other thing that she will spend hours doing and is her core competency, not mine. I'm not going to spend a lot of cycles running down market comps, is that she needs to give us all these market comps so that we understand how far off we are from the market.
Mhm.
So that's the other thing that we need to get from her. Okay. So what's next for us? Okay. So we need to understand that what's coming next. Let's say, hypothetically, she runs the guy's credit, she does all her due diligence, and she comes back, this guy's a phenomenal tenant. Now, okay, now we need to be ready. We can't wait while she's doing her diligence on the tenant. What we need to be doing is figuring out what our goals are, figuring out what our terms are, trying to get a sense of what our counter offer will be. We should do a counter offer because we are set. We're in a position to be losing $12,000, right? So maybe we
Right.
want to do a counter offer. Maybe it's not 2 months of free rent. Maybe it's 1 month of free rent that we come back with. We need to do counter, and maybe it's part of our counter offer is like, hey, listen, we want to align these leases so that they are expiring on the same time. We'll give you a $12,000. We'll give it to you. But what we want in exchange is not a 5-year lease. We want a 2-year lease.
Right.
Um, and the tenant might be, oh man, only a 2-year lease. Why would I invest money and move here and do all this decorating and put in new equipment and all that if I'm only going to be here for 2 years? That tenant will have to calculate, consider that as a risk. And we can say, hey, listen, here's a situation. We might do this window project. We might not do this window project. We don't know. We're not looking to kick out the jeweler. I mean, we're not the jeweler's been there since the 1980s. We can give him some comfort in our messaging if we come back with only a 2-year lease option, but it's gonna make him a little skittish. He's gonna be like,
Of
oh man,
course.
maybe I don't wanna, take a risk on this location. If I'm only gonna get a 2-year lease, maybe this other location down the street is better for me because
Mhm.
I can get a 5-year lease from there. So we might scare off the tenant is what I'm saying if we come back with a 2-year lease. But I think with the right messaging and maybe with the right terms in the lease, with maybe some options in the lease, or maybe
Mhm.
some, Deanne suggested, one of the other leases, I think it's the pharmacy lease possibly, has some language in it that says, we might do this big window project, and if we do, uh, you know, you got to deal with it. You don't get any reduction in rent. You're going to have your customers coming through a construction site, and you're just going to have to deal with it, right? And so there's language you can put into the lease to kind of inform the tenants that this project might happen and that they're just going to be stuck with it if it does, and they have no recourse against us. So whatever we do, whatever message we have back to the tenant, and this is where it's real important for us to be, really in a lot of communication with Deanne through this process, because if we really understand the comps in the neighborhood, and she's given us all that detail, then we can calculate our risk properly. We can be like, you know what? This guy doesn't have any other options. In this area of Pasadena, which is the best area in Pasadena,
Mhm.
he's got one other option.
That's true.
It's a piece of crap, and it's bigger square footage, so he's gonna pay more in rent. I'm going to bet that he really wants our location. And you have to like take that calculated risk and be like, we're not gonna accept your offer, and these are our terms, and this is what you have to, this is our counter offer. And you have to take this bet that he's gonna accept our counter offer. So that's the whole game. But what I'm saying is that while Deanna is doing her due diligence for the next week or something, we really need to be really on our game with coming up and defining what is our counter offer.
Yeah,
And
so, oh, go ahead. No.
and
you
then
go
you add in the MCD side, right?
Right.
And we gotta, I mean, it's like, a lot of people have to agree on this. So this is not gonna be easy, is what I'm saying, and we gotta be working on this like full time over this next week. Okay,
Well,
so
one of the things that's standing out to me is, as you mentioned, is, an anchor tenant, um, kind of a concept. And right now, the anchor tenant we have is El Portel, right? And they're in the back. Um,
I would not consider them to be an anchor tenant, but they're the closest thing that we have to an anchor tenant.
exactly. And so what the anchor tenant in our situation, the arcade situation, should be occupying one of those Colorado properties, I would think.
Well, maybe, maybe not, I mean, there's an infinite number of configurations for retail. So,
Okay.
uh, I would say that, okay, you think about like, okay, a typical strip mall, you have a Safeway, and then you have a bunch of shops, a salon, and like
Hmm.
a gift shop, whatever, an ice cream shop. Okay, that one is a no-brainer. The anchor tenant is Safeway, and all of the other little shops
Mm.
are just side. So that is an example of what an anchor tenant, when real estate,
Oh, I see.
they're talking about really the big main draw, the reason why people
Right.
go to that
Like
location.
you go there for Safeway, but you
Yeah,
might stop at X, Y, and Z.
exactly. So that's why I say El Portales doesn't really qualify as
Mm.
an anchor tenant, because people,
They go to El Portal, they go to El Portal, they may walk through, but they're not stopping at the yarn store or the
correct.
ballet store.
Exactly,
Or,
exactly. I mean, people go there to, just as many go there to visit the yarn store as they do to go to our or El Portal. It's
right,
not
right.
like that they're connected in the way that a normal anchor tenant configuration would be. I would say probably you're closer if you combine all three dentists and you say
Mhm.
it's a category, the dentists are our anchor tenants. People are coming there to get their teeth
Keep
fixed,
fixed.
right?
Yeah.
And they may do some shopping on the side or whatever, or they may just become aware. Oh, I didn't know, as they're walking to their dentist, but I didn't know there was a yarn store here. Now, when I need yarn, I'll come back, or I know somebody who needs yarn, I'll tell them where the shop is. Like, just the visibility, is important too. So, I would say that, maybe the three dentists, if you combine them together, might be considered
Mhm.
a closer
Got
thing to an anchor tenant than El Portal. But, anyways, this is what we have facing us in the next week. Do you got
Mhm.
any questions on where
No,
on
I think
thinking?
yeah, I think it all makes sense. And I think taking the calculated approach, even though the initial thought is that it could be a good replacement of, the current sushi owners. Um, I think just being really calculated in the approach makes sense, because if we say yes to it, then we're, that store is tied up for however many years, right? 2 or 5 or whatever we say.
5 years, yeah, well, they're asking for a 5 year plus,
Mhm.
plus 2 5 year options, which actually means it could be tied up for 15 years,
15 years.
right?
Do we know, and this might have been outlined in the emails, but is there an existing relationship between the existing sushi company and the outgoing or and the incoming?
That is an excellent question. I've already asked that to Deanne. She has not gotten back to me on that. The reason I think it might be is because uh, this number right here was as a tell. What I meant by
Mhm.
that is this number $270 increase? Let's see if we go to, where is okay. Their lease ended in February and I mean, I'm sorry, it didn't end it ended in February, not ended, the price increase went as many do, 3% up. So the price increased from um 420 a square foot or 421 a square foot up to 447 per square foot, which is exactly, $270, 269.
Mhm. Yep.
Okay, well, the new tenant is asking for a rent reduction for that
Oh,
amount, 269.71. That exact number is what they're asking for. So that tells me that the current store owner has already communicated with the applicant. It's saying, this is what I'm paying now, right? My rent will go up in March by $269.71. But what I'm paying now is this,
mhm.
$4.47 a square foot. And so that's how they got that number, is because they were in communication with each other. So
Right.
that tells me that there is some type of relationship there. And it also tells me that maybe this sushi shop is actively trying to sell their location, actively trying to sell their shop, and is fielding it around with other people that they know or whatever. Maybe they've put it up for sale on some, I don't know, business sale website, I don't know, Craigslist, I don't know. But it tells
Right.
me that there's something going on there that we don't know. We don't know what's going on. Why do they want to leave their lease early? Why, what is going on? Are they going bankrupt? Are they've never been late on their rent. They're, as far as I'm concerned, they're an ideal tenant. They're
Right.
paying they're paying market rate, so that I love that. They have very low traffic, so it's very low wear and tear on the structure, less door openings, less plumbing usage, you name it, right? They're a low volume tenant paying market rate. I mean, this is a perfect tenant. Like, why would we want to get rid of this tenant? I don't see why we would want to get rid of this tenant. I know that Don and Tom have a different view of that. They want the foot traffic. They want the foot traffic and they want the shop open all the time. From an operational perspective, I don't. I would rather have, for example, a better business bureau that has 5 employees,
Mhm.
takes up 5 parking spots, has zero traffic coming through, has very low wear and tear on the building, and is paying market rate, right? That
Yeah,
is the
right.
ideal tenant. To me, that's the ideal tenant, not foot traffic. Foot traffic is not, I mean, if you are in a situation where you are trying to hit 100% occupancy and you think the only way you can get to 100% occupancy is to increase your foot traffic, and there's a direct measurable correlation there for your property, then okay, you want at least one anchor tenant that's going to bring in that foot traffic. But if you don't have that issue, which we really kind of don't have that issue,
We don't, yeah,
then
no.
then then that's not the ideal tenant for you. You do not want more foot traffic and more people taking up parking spaces, more people using the buildings. No, no, no. You don't want that kind of tenant. You want a better business bureau kind of tenant. Somebody paying full market rate, very low usage and wear and tear on the building and parking and everything else. So that's my
Mm,
2 cents on.
yeah, so if So if we if we achieve 100% occupancy and our cap rate is still hovering over at 2%, then there's to me there's something in that formula that is not um, producing the returns that we want or the cap rate that we want, even if all of our tenants are under contract, even if all of our spaces are under contract.
Well, okay, so I'm gonna ask you to table that question because like I said, a cap rate discussion is literally
Mhm.
like another hour-long discussion.
Yeah, no problem.
A different presentation. So I'd say you're right to be thinking like that, thinking like a real estate investor. But let's table that discussion for another time. So
Okay.
I want to stop this recording now. I don't want it to get too long. Before I stop the recording, do you have any further questions regarding
No,
this particular project right now and all the considerations going into?
no, no, this all makes sense.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna stop the recording.